Right now at 6, 3 massage parlors raided and 3 people under arrest.
Illicit massage businesses are all over Washington County.
Plus,
everybody's going to be grieving for a very long time.
A life suddenly lost to a rare disease. What 2 parents need you to know about the condition that took their son's life.
And how the power of teamwork helped bring a hiker missing in the Cascades for days out alive. First at 6 on this Friday, the use of tear gas and other tactics at Portland's ICE facility back in front of federal judges. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Christine Pitawanich. Today marked the next step for 2 cases winding their way through the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Devin Haskins listened in on that hearing. So, Devin, what'd you learn?
Yeah, the 2 cases that parallel each other were heard today. One about a neighboring building and the use of tear gas violating the tenant's civil liberties. The other stems from the federal government's use of tear gas on protesters outside Portland's ICE facility. The 3 judges will now decide if either case has merit.
Dickinson versus Trump.
2 parallel cases about tear gas heard Friday morning in a federal appeals courtroom in California. They center on whether tear gas violates civil liberties and if federal officers are violating First Amendment rights of protesters by using it.
The government has knowingly and repeatedly caused toxic chemicals to enter the bodies and homes of innocent people, causing them irreparable and life-altering harms.
The cases have already been heard before, with the district judge issuing an order to stopping its use. But then in March, the order was overturned by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, where the 3-judge panel voted 2-1, lifting the restrictions.
The court should now vacate the preliminary injunction in full. Plaintiffs have not presented anything new that would alter that conclusion.
In one lawsuit, residents of the Grays Landing apartments argue that federal officers inundated the building with chemical munitions during protests. And in the other, filed by protesters and journalists, the plaintiffs allege excessive force by federal agents outside the facility, violating their free speech rights.
There is an extensive factual record in this case where it shows repeated misuse of crowd control weapons, firing off the roofs of buildings where they have no possibility of hitting their target.
Lawyers for the government disagreed.
And I just don't think that, regardless of the opinion of whether particular acts were excessive uses of force, we're asking, was this First Amendment retaliation? And there's just no plausible evidence in this record to suggest an unwritten policy of First Amendment retaliation or to suggest subjective motivation to retaliate by law enforcement officers.
The arguments centered on case law about why the cases should be found with or without merit.
Well, the hearing lasted a little over an hour before it was adjourned. It's not clear when the 3-judge panel will make their ruling. 2 of the judges were appointed by President Trump, the other by former President Biden. Back to you.
Devin Haskins in the newsroom. Thanks, Devin.
Okay, taking a step outside now, looking live from our Oregon Zoo Skycam on this sunny Friday with Zoo Nights now underway.
Lots of people, no goats there. We find Chief Meteorologist Matt Zafino with some elephants somewhere out there soaking it all in. How's it going, Matt?
It's going great, David. In fact, you mentioned the elephants. We've just been standing here watching them because we've seen Tula 2. Can we see her now? No. But, well, Tula and Rose 2, and then Samson. And her dad, and then Chunder, right?
Yep, and I swear he dances to the tunes of the music. I think Samson enjoys a good show.
Well, then I bet you Samson's going to be getting his groove on tonight.
Yes, you know he is with Satin Love Orchestra.
That's right. So this is Jamie Ingles, sorry about that, event director here at the zoo, and she knows all the elephants, obviously, and what they do when the music comes on. And we've talked about Satin Love Orchestra, and they get started about a half an hour. Who else do you have coming up for Zoo Nights this summer?
So we've got a whole season all the way through August 21st. We have some classic Portland legends. I don't know if you've heard of Ural Thomas, great soul performer here locally.
Yeah.
Norman Sylvester.
Oh, we love Norman.
We always love Norman and his blues, and no one's better dressed.
No.
And then, of course, everyone's favorite party dance band, Hit Machine, Matt.
Hit Machine, yes. They've been around for a while, too. That's amazing. And then you haven't mentioned the Garcia Birthday Band because they're going to be here later in August as well, and they're a fantastic Portland band, cover band for the Grateful Dead.
We love them, and I heard you might be a fan.
I might be a fan. I might be a bit of a fan of the Garcia Birthday Band of the Grateful Dead, just a little bit. Yeah.
Well, we'd welcome you back anytime.
Well, I appreciate it. And, this is just such a great vibe, guys, because people are down on the grass. They're having picnics. They've got bottles of wine and cans of beer. I don't, of course, because we don't want to run afoul of FCC regulations or KGW regulations. restrictions. But nonetheless, everybody's doing, just having a great time out here with their beverage of choice. All right, let's look at the forecast for tomorrow. It's going to be a cloudy morning, so, if you are up late tonight, no worries. You can sleep in and you won't have the sun in your eyes. But then the clouds break up as the day wears on. Will be a touch cooler tomorrow, about 79. That's going to be the coolest day of the next 7. So I'll show you the 7-day forecast in a bit, guys. It warms up a little bit, but I tell you what, it is just a perfect night for live music at the Oregon Zoo. Back to you.
Yeah, I hope you decide to break out the dance moves because Satin Love Orchestra, for the viewers who don't know, is a 70s-inspired
disco
band.
They're saying.
So we want to see some moves, Matt.
And Christine, we all know that you're the dancer in this crew. Like, you compete. So if anybody's going to dance, we want you up here dancing because that would look good. If I dance, it's just going to look really geeky.
All right,
so
that
nobody
sounds
wants
like
to see that.
that
but
sounds
we
like
would
a
love to see
challenge
you
there.
dance.
We'll love that.
All right, we'll check back in a couple minutes, see if that music's
Thanks,
playing.
Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Sounds good.
All right, news to get you in your headlines. The city of Portland's auditor says Mayor Keith Wilson violated campaign finance laws during his 2024 campaign by accepting donations over the allowed limit. It all started thanks to information submitted in a separate case involving former city commissioner Renee Gonzalez. The auditor says Wilson's campaign accepted a total of $263 more than the allowed amount, just $263 from 3 individuals. And even though the overages were refunded a few weeks later, the city says Wilson did not do it fast enough. His campaign faces a fine of $526, though Wilson can appeal within the next month.
Now to an update on a massive weapon and drug seizure in Salem. Police tell us today they found even more after searching a storage unit. 47-year-old Michael Brossi was arrested earlier this week, and crews found an arsenal of weapons, they say, across several locations, along with anabolic steroids. Then yesterday, investigators say they found 24 more weapons along with narcotics. Brossi remains behind bars. And police shut down 3 alleged illicit massage businesses and arrested 3 people during a multi-agency crackdown in Washington County. Investigators say the businesses were operating as fronts for human trafficking and other criminal activity. 2 in Sherwood, Goji Foot Spa and Aroma Spa on Southwest Pacific Highway, and Sunny Massage in Tigard.
Well, illicit massage businesses are all over Washington County. They are fronts for often fraud, financial crimes, and human trafficking.
Now, investigators say they also seized more than $45,000 in cash. 2 people were cited for operating a massage business without a license. The property owners of all 3 businesses have been notified, and apparently they all plan to serve evictions.
To a vacation in the Northwest that turned into a nightmare when a Colorado family's 5-year-old died of an extremely rare disease.
The doctors here in Portland had never seen it before. His family shared his story with our John Adams, hoping to save others' lives.
5-year-old Justin Vu died here at Randall Children's Hospital on Wednesday, just days after being stricken with a mysterious disease so rare that there are only a few hundred documented cases worldwide.
It's still hard for us to believe that it was only 5 days.
Parents Therese Peden and Viet Vu tell us that short time was all it took from seeing their son Justin happy and healthy to saying goodbye in the hospital. The family arrived in the Pacific Northwest on a family vacation, enjoying 4 days at places like Cannon Beach in the Oregon Zoo. But everything changed when their 5-year-old became sick on the night of July 3rd.
He just said he had a stomach ache, and we just figured it was something, normal.
But their level of concern grew as Justin spent the night throwing up. The next morning, they rushed him to the ER. Doctors scrambled to diagnose Justin, with the likely culprits ranging from appendicitis to a bacterial infection. But as his condition worsened into the early hours of July 5th, his care team delivered a heartbreaking message.
They told us that he had to be put on life support and that he had a 50-50 chance.
As tests continued, one doctor at Randall Children's narrowed in on an answer.
She started to pin it down a little bit more. She said, "This sounds a lot like Clarkson's."
Clarkson's disease, an extremely rare condition with only about 500 cases worldwide since the 1960s. The disease attacks the body's vascular system, causing plasma to leak from the capillaries. Doctors launched a final push to save the 5-year-old, but it was too late.
We were informed that his body was dying, and those medications were not going to be enough.
Justin's parents then had to make the painstaking decision of how to say goodbye.
We read him bedtime stories and played his bedtime music, and he was surrounded by over 30 family members and hospital staff.
They say Justin passed away peacefully.
I would be honored to be his mom again in another lifetime, and that I'm really grateful that I got to be his mom.
Just 2 days removed from the loss of their child, his parents are still in shock, but want to share their son's story to raise awareness for the rare disease that took his life.
Nobody at Randall's had ever seen anything like it, so we need to get that information out there so that he can save some lives.
John Adams, KGW News.